Hey, this video is going to be on completing the square. All right, day one. Completing the square is probably something brand new to all of you. All right, because of that, we're going to really take our time here. Um, what completing the square is, all right, so this is what we call the square. All right, it's kind of rigging any quadratic so that you can write it as something squared, right, instead of two different factors. So you can see in both of these cases, all right, we've got a parentheses being squared, all right? And the way to make that happen, all right, is that you need a specific C value, all right? And the C value that you want is actually this right here, B over 2 squared, all right? Because if you think about factoring, right, your number is going to be adding up to this and multiplying to make this, right? And so that number is actually, well, it's going to be half of this, right? Because it needs to add up to make that, and then it's got to be the square root of this because it's got to multiply to make that. So by kind of figuring that out, it ends up being this. So this formula right here, b over 2 squared, you really need to know that, all right? There's not, I feel like, that many things that you need to have memorized, but b over 2 squared is one of those things. So we can look at these cases, right? What is that value going to be for 8, right? Well, we got 8 divided by 2, which is 4. 4 squared is 16. So the magic C value here is 16, and then that can be written as x plus 4 squared, right? So we're going to kind of work on this a little bit. We're going to do a couple examples here, all right? 3 of them. So when you're doing this, all right, usually you're going to have a C value that's in the way, right? We don't want 45 to be right here. So the first thing that you're always going to do is you're always going to get rid of, all right, whatever C value you have, because it's probably not the C value that you want. So we're always going to move our C value to the other side. And this is kind of different from other ways of solving. So you usually always want it to be equal to 0, but you basically want the C value to be empty here, all right? And then we're going to figure out what do we want to add here, right, to this side in order to make it work. So that's where we're going to use our b over 2 squared. So b is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 7 squared is 49. So our magic C value that we want is 49. All right? So what we're going to do is now we're going to add 49 to both sides. And we have to add it to both sides because we know we got to keep our equations equal. All right? So we add 49 to both sides. So negative 45 plus 49 is 4, okay? And what we're going to do now, all right, is now that we've created this, special quadratic, now we can factor it, right? So what multiplies to make 49 and adds to make 14? Well, it's always going to be this number right here, okay? 7, right? Because that's the number that is being squared to make this, and it's adding to make this. So it's x plus 7 times x plus 7, but we want to specifically write it as x plus 7 squared, all right? And the reason we want to specifically write it as x plus 7 squared is because now we can solve this like we did yesterday, all right? So we're trying to put these building blocks together so that it all flows. So this is why we kind of solve those things that we did yesterday. It's to help prepare us for this. So now we can square root both sides. So we've got x plus 7 equals plus or minus 4. And now we can make our two equations. X plus 7 equals 4, and x plus 7 equals negative 4. And we can solve these, so subtract by 7 on both sides. That gives us x equals -3. And on this side, it gives us x equals -11. So our solutions are x equals -3 and x equals -11. So this is a very new method, but it has a lot of uses. We're going to see some of its uses this year, and then next year in Algebra 3, you'll see a lot of its uses. All right, now, method 2, I honestly don't even want to waste time on that. Just move the C value out of the way, okay? So we're going to do 2 more, and I'll show you you're kind of repeating the same steps, all right? So first thing we want to do is get our C value out of the way that we don't like. So we've got x squared minus 2x equals 2, all right? Then we got to figure out what do we want to add to both sides. So our B value is -2. So we've got -2 divided by 2 squared. -2 divided by 2 is -1. -1 squared is 1. So our C value that we want to add to both sides is actually 1 for this problem. So we've got x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 3. Now remember, this was our factor, right, that we used to make our equation. So what multiplies to make 1 and adds to make -2 is x minus 1 and x minus 1. So we're going to write that as x minus 1 squared. So after you add in your own C value, you'll always have this step where you have a perfect square binomial. So now we can solve it. So we'll take the square root of both sides. That will give us x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 3. And now just like yesterday, all right, if we can't get a whole number here, right, we can't split it up, then that's fine. Just add your 1 over to the other side, and you're done. So we got x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 3. All right, so once you have got it down to completing the square, then it's just solving exactly like we did yesterday, all right? So last example, okay, we've got a 3 over here. That doesn't matter, all right? We don't need to make it equal to 0 because we know we're just going to be moving our C value out of the way anyway. So this will give us x squared minus 8x, 3 minus 20, that's -17. And again, we're going to do our formula of b over 2 squared. So our b value is -8. So we've got -8 over 2 squared. -8 over 2 is -4. And -4 squared is 16. So we're going to be adding 16 to both sides here. -17 plus 16 is -1. Now remember, this was our factor here, so -4 plus -4 is -8, and -4 times -4 is 16. So now we can rewrite this as x minus 4 squared equals -1. Square root both sides. This is kind of our third case. We got our negative number over here, so we know that's imaginary, all right? Which means it's going to be I, and that's actually just I because the square root of -1 is I. So we've got plus or minus I. Definitely not like terms here with an I and a regular number. So just like on the previous problem, we're just going to add our 4 over. So we got x equals 4 plus or minus I. All right, so hopefully you were able to follow that. If you can't remember the steps, right, they're written up for you. Up here, you've got 2 examples to look at, all right, as well as these examples that we did. So you've got 3 problems to do on your own, all right? So I want you guys to go ahead and try that, and we're going to get some more work with completing the square tomorrow, all right? If you have any questions, let me know, and have a great day.